Good evening to all of you. Please join me in welcoming a leading young voice in law, Mr. Swagat Baruah, an advocate and a lawyer with varied experiences, ranging from journalism to Supreme Court litigation to Bay Street corporate law. Mr. Baruah is an alumnus of Gujarat National Law University, Gandhinagar, and completed his post-graduation in LLM Business Laws from University of Toronto. You have an impressive record in the field of research and served as a founding editor to a few magazines or journals too. Sir, can you please give a short overview of your journey as a student, a lawyer, an advocate, and an editor to our audience?
Sure. Thank you very much, Vibhor, for the kind introduction and for inviting me today to your platform. So I started out from a very young age. I was into law and politics and issues of public policy from a very young age because my family has been in law from the past three generations. And when I joined Gujarat National Law University, I'll be frank with you, I was absolutely clueless as to what kind of a lawyer I wanted to become. And the only things that were out there were, like the sparkling things, which was, the big law firms. You have the big law like Sirla Machan, Shardula Machan, Mangal Das. That's all we ever spoke about, but nobody had any idea as to what kind of a lawyer we ever wanted to become. But I always had a different inkling towards different things from a very early age. I've been very inclined towards music, movies, and any sort of cultural things. And that sort of got me into journalism. And that helped me start a magazine when I was 20 years old called Catharsis. And there are a few reasons for me starting a magazine in my student years. It's because, firstly, I realized how important it was for me as a lawyer to be able to write and to read. These are very small tasks, but it's very, very important for a lawyer to do it absolutely well and absolutely accurately. So starting a magazine really helped me do that. It helped me get insight into how a person should read, how fast you can read, and how you can write certain things, because writing helps you gain clarity over various subjects. And also, secondly, it helped me gain a lot of networking opportunities with different kinds of people from all across the world. I had an opportunity to meet all sorts of intellectuals and lawyers from all around the world, gain insights into how their minds work, something which has always fascinated me. And fast forward that, I took my experiences from law school and I went to the Supreme Court of India. I joined senior at the bar, and therein I did some litigation work, commercial litigation work, which like mainly comprised of mine litigation and service law matters, all sorts of works. Like when you're in the litigation sphere, and this is something we'll talk about later on in the interview, that you have an exposure to all sorts of laws, and you have to like basically handle all sorts of laws when you're doing litigation in India. After that, I went on to do a postgraduate from the University of Toronto, and I landed a job in a big law firm in Toronto called Garling WLG, at which I still have my stint from August, and I'm waiting to go back very soon. That's I tried to be brief, but I had a lot to say. Sorry.
That's something that happens to, I guess, people who are in researches and stuff because, well, it's comprehensive. You cannot be brief about it. I know.
Thank you.
Uh, Mr. Barua, you had such a vast experience. Sir, can you paint a basic picture of the current situation of law and especially public policy in India?
Uh, I mean, I guess we have to be a bit more specific as to. I mean, are you talking about the political landscape, or are you talking specifically about the legal landscape? Because those are two different things.
Sir,
Uh,
basic law. What do
okay,
we
basic.
understand
Okay,
as law? A
okay,
basic
cool.
understanding.
Okay, so I mean, currently the legal landscape is. I mean, it's. I'll be honest with the viewers. It's very hard to paint a broad picture as to how things are going. But as things stand right now, I mean, the Supreme Court has had a very tumultuous few 5 years, in the last few years, and it has also come out very strong in that regards, because we have a in the current Chief Justice Chandrachud, we have someone who's extremely liberal and someone who has sort of swayed public opinion for the first time in the Supreme Court history. He has been single-handedly been able to sway public opinion, which has never really happened before in India. No other Chief Justice has held so much power over public opinion like Chief Justice Chandrachud has had. And secondly, when it comes to public policy, most of the laws which have been, abrogated, supposing take the Article 370 matter, which was something very huge, or the same-sex marriage matter, or homosexuality under 377. So there's this whole narrative that the BJP government has had only conservative laws outcoming, and there's only been this conservative and bigoted outcome constantly. But I refrain from making such a statement because from the Supreme Court we've had this constant tussle between the government and the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has constantly held the government in check. For example, if we say that the BJP government is so conservative, then how come there has been the 377 judgment in the same time, right? Which has legalized homosexuality and has upheld rights for the LGBTQ plus community. So there's been a mix of both, I would say, India. But as Mark Twain greatly, summarized his first paragraph in A Tale of Two Cities, it's the worst of times, it's the best of times. That's how I would, summarize how the legal landscape looks right now. But it's very exciting times. We'll get into it more maybe.
Exactly. You mentioned Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud. We'll come on to him. We have a question related to him as we move forward. Sir, can you tell our audience the basic hierarchy of legal systems? As you know, most of the people out there, audience, they don't know what are the institutions in this nation, the legal institution, and how they should have, what kind of approach they should have towards them. So, can you just give a small
Okay.
brief?
Okay. So firstly, there's two things. Uh, so there are three organs of a state. Okay. So the state is comprised of three organs. Firstly, it's the legislature. And secondly, it's the executive. And thirdly, it's the judiciary. And all three organs of the state come together to function and work together to do things for the country and the nation. And the executive is mainly comprised of the state bureaucracy and the central bureaucracy. The legislature is comprised of the upper house and the lower house. And the judiciary, as you can say from its name, it's the judiciary, it's a legal fraternity. Within that, how the courts are structured is that at the top you have the Supreme Court, then comes the high courts of various states, and after that you have the subordinate courts of every district, which are again further divided into criminal courts and civil court and revenue court. And apart from this, there's also this another mechanism. There's another two mechanisms for dispute resolution, which is firstly, you have specific matters tribunals. For example, supposing you have an income tax matter come up, so it will be first resolved by the income tax tribunal. Supposing you have a service law matter, supposing like you got fired from your job in your employment, and then you have this matter you want to go and contest in court, you'll first go to the central administrative tribunal instead of going to the civil court. So the government has instituted special courts for special purposes, like that. And there's also this growing and evolving ADR, alternative dispute resolution mechanism, and negotiation mechanism, which is it's really helping out litigants solve their disputes outside of court. And this is a huge thing because it really saves time, firstly, and it saves a lot of money. And if you look at countries like Canada, where I have been fortunate to practice, and also the United States, most of those countries are all based on settlement. They rarely go to trial, they don't go to court. I mean, if you have an issue, we'll first try to settle down, we'll come to a table, we'll have both the lawyers and we'll have a settlement from that and through a negotiation. And I think that's way better than going to court directly, because the court is already overloaded with cases. So that is how those are the two things, how the court and the system of the state is structured.
Okay, sir. Moving forward, so you have studied from National Law University in this country, and we are a major section of our target group. They are people who are aspiring for various competitive exams, who just wants to be part of some big future making universities. What is the curriculum at national law universities, and does that support the practical knowledge field works according to your experiences?
Okay, so I can speak for my law school, which was Gujarat National Law University, and so it's basically an integrated program, and you have a 5-year integrated law program in which you have to pursue a bachelor's in certain field. Like for example, you can do BA or BSc, BCom, BBA, or BSW, and along with that you'll have the LLB. So that's how the curriculum is designed. So in the first 3 years you have a BA and the LLB courses going on simultaneously, and the final 2 years you have just the legal courses. And I think this is great because, erstwhile what used to happen was that people used to study a certain field, like supposing, like in our father's times, they used to firstly do a BA, and then they used to go on to do the LLB, which was a 3-year LLB course. But nowadays, under the national law school system, since 1988, they've had this integrated course, which I think is fantastic. And in that, you have a lot of courses offered. You have everything ranging from political science to legal philosophy to all sorts of law subjects. I remember in my times, we used to do at least, wow, geez, at least 10 papers per semester. So we've studied literally everything from insurance law to land laws to criminal law, civil procedure law, everything there is to be studied. It's a lot to be studied in 5 years, but I mean, you have to do what you have to do. So that is how it is structured. And to answer your second question, if there has been any practical insights, I would definitely say yes, because in national law schools and in law schools across India nowadays, there's a huge stress on this thing called a moot court competition, which is basically a mock trial. And a lot of these, like in which students participate in mock trials, they can hone their speaking abilities and their research abilities by participating in different national and international moots. And I think this is it's a stellar achievement of all law schools across the country, because this really helps you enter or like land on the pedestal for future practice. Supposing you want to go to the Supreme Court or High Court to practice litigation, this moot court really helps you gain practical insights into how you can speak in court, how you are to answer questions, how you are to conduct yourself in court in front of judges and lawyers. So I would definitely say Indian law schools have a huge practical um, factor benefit for sure.
Sir, while going through your LinkedIn profile, we came to know that you have done an interview with Chief Justice of India, D.Y.
Yeah.
Chandrachud, with a slogan: Supreme Court is final not because it is right, but it is right because it is final. So it will be very interesting if you elaborate on this statement.
Okay, sure. I think so. I think the Chief Justice was he was quoting himself. He was himself quoting another Chief Justice, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes of the U.S. Supreme Court, who had first said this. So what it basically means, Vibhor, is that the Supreme Court is not always right, and their decisions are only final, but it does not mean that they are right. So and like so, what you have in the Supreme Court itself, you have a two-judge bench, for example, which has just adjudged a matter. Now that judgment can be appealed further to a five-judge bench, and that judgment can be appealed further to a nine-judge bench, right? So that in itself means that the Supreme Court is, like it may not be right. The judgments may not be completely right, and hence there is this whole appealing mechanism within the Supreme Court itself. Firstly, there's that, and secondly, the metaphor is that beyond the Supreme Court there is the law of the god, and there is the law of time. And like with the passage of time, some judgments of the Supreme Court might be again reconsidered at a later time, which means that it can be overruled. For example, the Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud, he overruled his own father's judgment in a very famous fundamental rights case recently. So that is how that is what he means when he says that it's final, not but does not mean it's right. Yeah,
Mr. Barua, you
yeah.
have had similar interviews with people related to music, movie industry also. In your experience, how would you compare the law in fact versus fiction or real versus real life scenarios?
So I mean, that's a hard question because uh, very few movies, get it right, is what I've seen, and I cannot compare. But from like so, I can definitely compare both scenarios because I can compare the foreign legal landscape with Hollywood, and I can compare the Indian legal landscape with Bollywood. What I've seen is Bollywood, of course, over dramatizes things, and Bollywood seldom gets anything right. There's anything because Bollywood is all drama, and in courts you can rarely go out and be like Abhay Deol. Sorry, no, it's Akshay Deol. No, who's the guy who says Tariq pe Tariq? Sanjay Deol. Oh, I forgot his name.
Sunny, oh, is it
Sunny
Sunny there?
Sunny Deol. Yes, sorry, so sorry. It's Sunny Deol. It's Sunny Deol who goes and says Tariq pe Tariq, Tariq pe Tariq. And you can never go to a court like say the district court or the high court and say something like that because automatically you'll be charged with contempt of court, right? So there's these huge distinctions when it comes to those things. But I am reminded of this quote by William Shakespeare, and I think this holds right into like all things in life. He says that all the world's a stage, and men mere players, and I think that's very important because we are all actors on this theater. And how cases unfold in India is that in the Supreme Court maybe or in high courts across the country, supposing a lawyer, a big lawyer, like it's all upon the name, like how if you have a Shah Rukh Khan in your movie, your movie's a hit, right? Similarly, if you have a Mukul Rohatgi or a Gopal Subramaniam or a Kapil Sibbal or a Hari Salve in your case, you're gonna win the case, right? So that is also how like I see movies in law in that way. When it comes to the foreign landscape, though, I don't know if you've seen Suits. A lot of people have seen Suits. I did sort of experience that life in Toronto very briefly, and I would say that Suits sort of gets it right. Like how things actually unfold in the foreign legal landscape. Uh, and there's other movies like 12 Angry Men, which I really love, which also gets a lot of things right. But in recent years, I would say there was a recent Manoj Bajpayee movie, which was upon, I think, the Asaram Bapu case. I think it's a 2024 movie. And that sort of got a lot of things right. So did Section 375, which was based on Shani Ahuja's case. Now I think like Bollywood has sort of like changed its style a bit, and like they're getting a lot of these things right. But I would still consider that that it's very hyped and over dramatized, and a lot of these things are not real. But you still can learn a lot from movies and books, especially books like say John Grisham's books, something I read when I was young before I went to law school. So yeah, I don't know if you have any more specific questions. I'd be happy to answer
Yeah, yes, sir.
beyond it.
Continuing with this topic, with a
Yeah,
small curiosity as an audience point of view, we generally see this lady with a blindfold holding justice. What
yeah.
does that what does that gesture mean? Like what is that statue specifying?
Okay, so that like in legal terms, it means okay. I'll give you the layman term first, so that your audience understands. It basically means kanun andha hai. And secondly, to specify that in legal terms, it is firstly that there's Article 14 of the Constitution, which talks about equal protection of the laws and equality before the law. But those are two different things. So equal protection of the laws means that like every person, despite his sorry, it means that like the law is to be applied equally across the country and across every human being equally. And equal protection before the law means that every person, despite his background, be it his sex, be it his race, be it his place of origin, can seek those basic fundamental rights before this court, right? So those are two different things: equal protection of the law and equal protection before the law, which is granted by Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. And that is what it basically signifies when the lady who wears that blindfolded is blindfolded, Lady Justice is blindfolded, and she basically means that, like yahan pe everyone is equal, and everyone must be treated equally, and the law must be applied equally and parallelly to everyone.
Exactly. You mentioned Kanun Andha Hai. I was about to ask something from that.
Right.
In movies, we'd often hear another statement like
Yeah.
कानून के हाथ बहुत लंबे होते हैं.
Yeah.
So, off the reel, what are the real life implications? Like, where do we stand on this? With the law system stand on this statement?
कानून के हाथ बहुत लंबे होते हैं. I mean, in the sense that, like, I can give you even better dialogue, maybe like, but it'll be a Hollywood dialogue, which will be like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure, sure. Yeah.
either you catch up with the law or the law catches up with you. It's some sort of a Western movie dialogue, maybe. But that's what it basically means. I mean, you have to follow the law, and you cannot be, ignorance of the law is not an excuse ever. So you cannot do something today and say that, oh, मुझे तो पता ही नहीं था ये illegal है ना? So so you cannot say something like that and just get away from the law, because कानून के हाथ बहुत लंबे होते हैं, and it has far-standing implications. So everything that you do, and I think there's a broader implication of this statement, is that everything that you do has a legal implication, and your interactions on a daily basis have legal implications, and that can be with a company, which is, by the way, in law, in legal terms, considered to be an artificial human being. A company has rights as a human being does, right? So on a daily basis, you interact with, say, Zomato, Swiggy. You're interacting and having legal implications. You're interacting with your friend Kushal here. You're interacting with me. This interaction has legal implications, right? So that is also what is meant when it says, "Kaanoon ke haath lambe hote hain," because everything has legal implications, and you never know when things go wrong. But the recourse, again, it's again always available. There's always a legal remedy for every wrong. So yeah, that is what is meant by that statement, I believe.
Yes, sir. Mr. Barua, you have edited magazines and have been vocal on various issues of culture, laws, politics, casteism, etc. Would you like to elaborate your journey, some major insights in current world or in Indian scenarios, especially how youth plays a key role in putting their voices forward? How you played your role?
Okay, I mean, that's a broad question. Okay, I'd start by saying this, that like when I started the magazine, it was primarily because I believed in the youth voice of the country, and secondly because we were seeing what was happening in the country, and at any point in any given point in any country, I believe that it is always the youth from which new ideas will come, where the soul of rebellion exists, and where you have, like new leaders coming about, right? And where those ideas have to make way for the old. And that is where, like you have a rejuvenation of democracy. And that can only come from student bodies and from students all across the world. And being in a law school, I always believe that, you have to be a political being, because हम lawyers political नहीं होंगे तो कौन होगा, है ना? So that's your first duty as a lawyer, that you have to stand up for injustice. You have to stand up for what's going wrong in the country. And secondly, उसके बाद आप पैसा बनाइए, आप जो करना है आप कीजिए. But firstly, I believe as a lawyer's duty is to stand up for what's wrong, right? That is essentially why a lot of people go to law school. So that was the vision why I started Catharsis. And catharsis meaning that, like you have an outlet, like you have an outlet for your issues. You're finding an outlet. And that is what the magazine was all about. And secondly, what kind of role students can play in our lives. I believe students have played greater roles than me. You see someone like Greta Thunberg, who is just, I believe now she's 18 or 20. But look at what she's achieved in her life so far, just being a schoolgirl. So age is no barrier. This is something I keep telling everybody. Age is no barrier for you to do anything or to be anybody in this life. And just because you're 16 does not mean you cannot hold views over the environment or over the BJP government doing certain things. And just because you're 27 does not mean you have to have these kind of views or yeah, ye nahi kar sakte. Does not mean that. So that's the role students can play, I believe, in a democracy, because we also saw when in 2016, when I was just entering law school, there was this whole protest in JNU going about the Kanhai Kumar protest. And that sort of proved to be very important in India's democracy around that time, when, like there was a lot of sedition laws being applied all across the country, almost sort of like an emergency kind of a state in the country. And it was students of the country, students in the capital, who I would say held against the forces of tyranny during that time. And they're still continuing to do that. So जो भी होगा स्टूडेंट से ही होगा, जो भी होगा यूथ से ही होगा. And आप लोग, I mean, you guys are the students today, and I'm sure you can attest to this fact, that the power that you have today, you'll never have it again in your life. So, and you're making great use of it, which is amazing. I really appreciate it, both. So I hope and I wish you good luck, that you can continue to use this platform to enlighten more people.
Thank you, sir. As we head to the conclusion of this talk session, our audience would be, they would like to know about various opportunities in the field of law.
Okay. So there's, again, going back to the first question, as to like what kind of a lawyer you'd like to become. I think that's the first question you can answer when you are going to law school. Now, there's various kinds of fields. Firstly, there's, of course, the very coveted corporate law field, in which you can go into corporate law firms such as Cyril Amachan, Shadul Amachan, ACB Partners. Basically, you're in a law firm setting, you're doing a desk job. And I think, since we're still on the topic of law versus movies, I can think of Suits, or I can think of John Grisham's The Firm, which will give you a good idea as to how firms actually work. Now, that is very different from a chamber practice, which is, like when you join a senior at the bar and you go and argue before judges in the court, which is called litigation, right? That is very different from doing a firm job, because in firms, you never go to court to argue, right? So in a litigation sphere, you'll be completely on your own. It's the wild west. You're a complete capitalist, independent practitioner who has to make his own money and who has to handle cases completely on his own. And you will be going constantly day in day out to the court to argue before the judges. And these are the people who wear the black robes, and who go to Supreme Court to argue, right? And these are the people you see in movies also. And thirdly, there's also a very growing and evolving sphere of negotiation. There's alternative dispute resolution. There's also public international law, which is a huge sphere, in which people go to the public organs such as the United Nations and go and work there. And there's also research positions, such as like you're being a research analyst at various think tanks, such as Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, Center for Policy Research, think tanks like that. So like you can use your skills for so many different things, and that's the best part about being in law school. You can also leave law or do anything else. Maybe, I don't know, go into music, make movies. I have friends who do that. I myself have produced an album this year. I'm producing a second album right now as we speak. You can also do that. There's also the judiciary exams, which are very interesting and very prestigious. And there's, of course, the all knowing, omnipresent UPSC, which a lot of lawyers decide to give. Now, how you will be helped, I believe, by going into law school is that firstly, law school will prepare you for life. Competition is extremely cutthroat here, and you will not come out fragile or weak from a law school. And secondly, the way it helps you is that you are really in touch with critical thinking. And this is something that helped me deeply. Like even if I leave law today, I will still have these powers of critical thinking, the way I can think, the way I can solve an issue. That is something that I am always grateful to for going to law school. And thirdly, you have a deep interconnectedness to the issues of the country. You cannot not be a political human being. And you have a say in the country as soon as you enter law school. And you can venture out and do anything after that, maybe even enter politics, right? So there's all of these different things. But, like to answer your question as to the main things that exist in law school right now, I'll still say that, like, corporate positions are still the most chased after, the most prestigious. And after that comes litigation, which is also the most prestigious. So, yeah, there's that. Do you have, I mean, I'd be happy to answer if you have any more, like specific questions about it. I can't hear you.
So, am I visible?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sir. I think we are running out of time now.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We were delighted to have you on the session. It was an insightful session. I hope we hold this session with you again in near future. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much, Vibhor. Thank you so much, Kushal. It was an absolute
Thank you, sir.
pleasure. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much. And where will this be available? Where will the
sir.
recording available?
We'll be premiering on YouTube soon.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you
Sir,
so much.
sir, could you please name the album that you have produced, which you were
Actually,
Uh,
mentioning?
I thought it might be personal question, so I did not ask it.
it's fine. I'll send you the link, Kushal. I'll send you the link
Okay.
on LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you
Thank
so
you,
much,
sir.
guys.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Good luck and keep up the good work. Bye.